Hey, welcome back, and in this video we're going to give an introduction to graph databases. So I'm sure a bunch of you are thinking, what is a graph database when it's at home, and how does that differ from traditional databases? Well, it's a special kind of database where value is placed on the relationships between objects, or in graph database land, nodes. Probably the easiest way of explaining this is for me to get out my iPad and we can draw up a graph database. So one of the most popular examples in graph databases to give away the concepts is the use of social networks, because it's something we all pretty much understand. So the first thing that I'm going to draw on my iPad is I'm going to have a node that represents people or persons in that social network. So let's draw one here, and this would be a person. And in this case, that person is going to represent me, Chris. So it is going to have a property, and that is going to be name Chris. And then maybe I'm going to put other information as properties. Perhaps I'm going to have my favorite color, so which is orange, and maybe I will have something like favorite movie or something like that. You could put any properties that you want associated with that node. So I'm now represented on that graph is a node, and that node is of type person. Now, if I have another friend on my network, so maybe one of my friends is going to be Jemima. So we would draw another person node. And again, this time it would have properties. So in this case, it would be Jemima. That would be put in there. And then maybe Jemima has got a favorite color. That could be blue. And then it could be a whole other set of properties that exist. And then we could have other people. So maybe another person might exist. So that could be Jenny. So let's put name Jenny. And then we have her represented, and she could have her own properties. So again, favorite colors, etc., etc., etc. So we've now got 3 nodes on my graph, and they're of type person. And then maybe I want to have relationships with them. So perhaps I'm a friend with this person. So let's just draw a relationship. So a little arrow here, and we'll put friend, and then we'll put another one here, and that could be friend. And then maybe Jenny is friends with somebody I don't know. So Jenny's going to have her own friends. So that could be person, and that could be Bob. And Jenny could also be friends with Janet, right? But I'm not friends with those people, but Jenny is. And then, of course, myself and Jenny might be friends with some of the same people. So let's draw another arrow between Chris and Bob. So maybe I'm friends with Bob, and then I would have a friend relationship with Bob there. So as you can see, I've only introduced a few persons into this graph, and already it's getting quite complicated quite quickly. But again, it is super useful, because if I want to be able to quickly find out who I'm friends with, I can look at this graph and I can see I'm friends with Jemima and Jenny, but I'm not friends with Janet. I'm also friends with Bob. And then I can also look at this graph and see who both myself and Jenny have friends in common with. So in this case, both myself and Jenny have a friend relationship with Bob, so therefore we're both friends there. And again, I can traverse this to find people that Jenny is friends with that I'm not friends with. So in this case, Janet. So as you can see from this example, graph databases are really good about finding and building relationships between different nodes. That is its key use case. And the more complex those relationships are, and the more complicated the queries that you have there, the more useful graph databases would be over traditional relational databases. Because traditional relational databases are really quite bad at discovering relationships beyond 2 or 3 levels. So now that we've got a good example in our head, probably the 3 key concepts that you need to remember when looking at graph databases is this concept of the node, which is the object that represents your data. So in the social networking case, that was a person. So we can have multiple nodes in a graph. And then the next, so we'll just write node in one of these things. The second thing that you really need to get the idea of is relationships, i.e. how are these nodes related? So, and that could be things like friend, it could be things like a payment, if it was a banking scenario. It could be anything that relates these items together. And then the last thing, as I said before, is this concept of properties. So that's data that is associated with that node. So in the example that we gave, it was like name or favorite color, but it also could be a label that is associated with the relationship. So in this case, I have a friend relationship, but you could have properties that are associated with that. So you could have something like best friend, yeah, saying yes, and maybe the date that you became friends at, so date of friendship. Maybe anniversary, for example, of friendship. That could all be properties. So that is the three key things that you need to know. So hopefully you found this quite useful. And I'm hoping that you are imagining all your own use cases that you could use in your own business. And again, this technology is getting hot in things like e-commerce, for example. Anywhere machine learning or recommendations occur, it's getting super, super hot as a technology there. And I'm sure you're buzzing with your own ideas of how you could use this. Anyway, I hope this has been useful, and speak soon.